He's Vic Carucci. I'm Jonathan Acosta here at SoFi Stadium, where we witnessed, honestly, a game that I don't think many people were expecting coming into this one. Not because of the caliber of the two teams, but simply the way it played out. The Bills score 42 points. Josh Allen has a historic game. Yet the Bills' 7-game win streak is snapped. The Rams winning this one by a final score of 44-42. And Vic, I think we have to start on the defensive side of the ball for the Bills. Where did this game go wrong for this team on that side of the ball as they struggled to really stop the Rams at all in this game?
I think we had a pretty good idea of the direction it was going defensively for Buffalo in the first half when they gave up 24 points, something they hadn't done in the first half of games previously this year. So I think you knew, okay, there are things they're either going to have to adjust or tighten up defensively in the second half. I think that was something that we'd seen them do in other games, and why not think it would happen again, Jonathan? But it didn't. It got worse, and especially from their zone defense against a passing game where Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, two of the very best as a duo in the NFL, and of course Matthew Stafford at quarterback, carving things up and finding those holes in coverage time and time again, and they just couldn't get off the field defensively. Buffalo couldn't. So I think that set a tone and kept Buffalo in sort of a retreat mode. I mean, offensively, yeah, they tried to come back and certainly made a valiant effort to do so, did everything really you would expect to win a game, but that defense just did too much damage.
Vic, did this game surprise you from this standpoint? Sean McDermott post-game said that the Rams controlled both lines of scrimmage and that it's difficult to get pressure on the quarterback when you can't really stop the run. Kyren Williams obviously had 2 rushing touchdowns, had a very solid game running the ball overall. But the strength of this Bills defense all season has been that pass defense, both with the pass rush and then the secondary, especially the cornerbacks Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford. Knowing that the Rams came in as a team that heavily liked to throw the ball to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, for as good as they are, did it surprise you the way that the Bills simply either weren't able to adjust or were out-executed by the Rams passing offense?
Yeah, I think it had more to do with their execution. I'm not sure there would have been any better strategy that would have allowed them to do a better job against the pass. Zone defense is generally designed to, bend but don't break, give some things up and then tighten up later. They weren't tightening up in the late stages of these drives, of course, and the Rams would get it into the end zone and score. And could you have gotten more pressure? Maybe. I think that's a way to do it. Could you have done more blitzing and made Matthew Stafford uncomfortable in the pocket? He's not the runner, a run-oriented type of guy. He can do some things on the move, but he's not a runner. He's a pocket thrower classically and an older quarterback. So there might have been some things you could have done there to offset what was happening with their passing game. But, controlling the line of scrimmage, yeah, I could hear or see that point that Sean makes about that, maybe especially when it came to not getting enough pressure on Stafford. But as far as dealing with the Rams' run game, which had been pretty good, and they've got Kyren Williams, I mean, they've got some talented people who can run the football, and they even work Puka Nacua on some of those jet sweeps. But they only averaged, 3.3 yards per carry. So it was not an overwhelmingly powerful run game by the Rams.
Sean McDermott also said that it's tough to win games when you lose 2 of the 3 kind of sort of phases of the game. On defense, special teams, obviously the blocked punt return for touchdown, a pivotal play for the Rams in this one. Obviously the phase that the Bills won was on offense. Again, a historic game from Josh Allen, the first player ever with 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in the same game. Over 400 yards of total offense, 6 total touchdowns. Vic, did it feel like the Bills sort of wasted this game on offense, knowing that with the game Josh had, even a C- game gets you a win in this one, and the Bills defense wasn't even able to get that? Did it feel like they wasted this performance from Josh Allen and the Bills offense?
There's no question that this felt like a wasted game. Your quarterback does these inhuman, superhuman kinds of things, and he seems to do them, of course, every week. But this was yet another game where he played to this level of spectacular, iconic play that you look at. And of course, in the short term, it's a discussion about MVP. And I don't know who could be making a better case in the NFL right now than Josh Allen, the way he's doing it week after week. There's still time left in the season, but right now it just looks like a no-brainer when you look at the way he's played. And then to still find a way to lose that game is just staggering, because he's always the guy who's going to give you a reason to win. Something really has to go haywire elsewhere to cost you a game like this, and it did for Buffalo. It did on defense. It did with the blocked punt that was a scoop and score. You returned 22 yards for a touchdown. And it did with, and I know we'll get into this, questionable decision-making by the head coach in the late stages with time management.
Vic, it looks like you've done this before, because you led me right into the next question that we are going to talk about. We've talked about the three phases. Obviously, the offense performed very well. But now we got to talk about coaching, because three of the Bills' losses, one of them was a blowout in Baltimore, but the other two have been close losses, and they both had sort of questionable decision-making from Sean McDermott at the end. The loss in Houston, and now this one here in Los Angeles. The Bills have a first and goal, I think, right around with a minute left. They try to tush-push with Josh Allen. He doesn't get in, and the Bills needing 3 timeouts to have them on defense to stop the Rams, get the ball back with a chance to win the game. They burned that critical timeout. I want to hear your thoughts on that decision-making from Sean McDermott that obviously came back to bite them in the end.
Yeah, it was surprising that they had to call that timeout, because to me, I mean, the situation dictated, I think, just getting up, getting out of that pile. And yeah, you could say that might slow things down a hair. Sean McDermott referenced that in his post-game news conference, but I think it's negligible, or you're splitting hairs when you talk about how much time of unraveling the pile there would have been to get back to the line and get going. I mean, this is situational football. You should be knowing in the late stages of a game, when you're trying to rally, when you're behind, get everybody up and together, and boom, do that play again, which they did. They got the play done after the timeout, but now you're down to 2 timeouts. Now you are forced to onside kick, a very low percentage chance of recovery, basically giving the ball back to the Rams and never seeing the ball again. At least if you have all 3 timeouts, you've got a chance to have it for a shot with whatever it would be, maybe under a minute to go, but still more time to do what the Bills would have tried to do in that circumstance with, a full sleeve of timeouts, or at least enough to force the Rams to give you the ball with time left. Let's put it that way. And it's Josh Allen having another incredible day. Why wouldn't you think he could get them into field goal range and win the game?
Yeah, and on top of all of that, maybe inconsequential and on top of everything, but on that final punt, Sean McDermott said they couldn't go for the punt block because they didn't have enough players on the field. The Bills only had 9 players on the field, so questionable decision-making, not enough players on the field. Overall, certainly not the cleanest last minute and a half for Sean McDermott and his team. One final note before we end things, Vic. The Bills go to Detroit to take on the Lions next week. They're 12-1, look like arguably the best team in the NFL. Does this performance here give you any sort of concern for when they go to Detroit next week? And we've seen the Bills sort of beat up on teams this season, but when they face sort of these offenses in the higher stratosphere of the NFL, the Rams here, once they're healthy with Puka and Cooper Kupp, and now going on to take on the Lions, does this performance give you any sort of level of a concern?
I don't think the performance itself would be a concern. I mean, you can argue the Bills did just about everything that they needed to do to win a game. So I can't fault them. This wasn't a blowout loss. I know it doesn't feel any different if you lose by 1 or lose by 60, but that said, as far as concern goes, Jonathan, the Lions game from the moment you looked at the schedule, and in particular when you saw how the Lions were playing or have been playing up to this point, it is a concern. That is, some would argue, the best team in the league, and maybe it's still the two best teams in the league squaring off in Detroit next week. So it's concerning because of the Lions' offensive power and balance. They do a lot of things right, especially run the football. And I think the Bills have a vulnerability against power-oriented offenses. And defensively, yeah, the Bills got a lot to come back from. And we'll also see if the Bills get any healthier. Does a Dalton Kincaid get healthy enough to the point where he could be in the lineup, and that could help make a difference? Maybe a Keon Coleman can possibly return. So we'll see what their health situation is. And of course, they might have an injury or two lingering from this Rams game. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Despite the loss here, Vic, I think still next Sunday, certainly one of the most anticipated games of the entire regular season. Again, the Bills go to Detroit to take on the Lions at Ford Field, a 4:25 kickoff between still two of the best teams in the NFL. For Vic Carucci, I'm Jonathan Acosta for Channel 2 Sports.